morning. Welcome to Esri's third policy webinar, Building Story Maps for Public Websites, Press, and Media. This is Lauren Lipovic, Program Manager of Esri Public Policy. I will be monitoring the queue for questions throughout today's webinar. Feel free to type any questions that you have into the chat window on your screen to the right throughout today's broadcast, and we'll do our best to answer those. So with that, I would like to turn it over to my counterpart, Solution Engineer Bonnie Stair, to walk you through how to build story maps. Bonnie?
Great, thank you, Lauren. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. As Lauren said, my name is Bonnie Stair, Solution Engineer with Esri's National Government Team. So we'll go ahead and get started. These are the topics that we're going to cover today. I'll do just a really brief overview of what story maps are. We're going to focus specifically on a particular template called the map tour and how there's an easy pathway to configure it by leveraging Flickr as a photo storing service. We'll look at options for when your photos are not stored online, if they're just stored locally on your machine, how you can load them into the template. How we handle photos without location information, since everything that we're putting out here is associated with a map. We'd like to have some location info, so we'll look at how to handle that. We'll also look at how to use a spreadsheet. So if you find that that's an easier way to organize the information that you want to put into your story map. We'll look at configuration options, so how you can sort of configure the map tour to really brand it and make it your own. We'll look at adding district outlines or other types of administrative boundaries. And then we'll talk about sharing and embedding, how we can, put the map tour out in front of your audience. And then if we have time, we'll take a quick tour of some of the other templates that are available, or otherwise we can leave you with a resource to explore on your own. So to get started, what are story maps? So we sort of define them as simple web apps that combine interactive maps, multimedia content, and user experiences to tell stories about the world. So as you can see, there are a few examples graphically below. These are just a few of the types of layouts and templates that we have available. These templates are meant to be responsively designed, so they'll work on any type of device, no matter the form factor. So whether you're viewing them on a mobile device or a full laptop screen or PC screen. They are hosted in Esri's cloud environment by default, but you can also customize them and host them on your own infrastructure if you'd like as well. So just a couple quick examples from some existing congressional offices that have already made use of this technology. We'll show just a couple examples. I've got a screenshot here, but I'm gonna show them to you live. This is actually an example from Senator Ron Wyden from Oregon. So his digital director has been creating these for a while, and this is an example where they embedded a map tour into a blog post. So on his blog page back in 2014, they wanted to highlight a listening tour that he had done around Oregon. And as he went around the state, his staff was capturing photos of him at each of his stops. So along with the blog text itself, they embedded this interactive map tour right into the page. So we can see the ribbon of photos along the bottom associated with the little icons on the map. So we can navigate by just clicking through the photo ribbon. It'll show where that point is on the map. We can advance on the main photo itself. Or we can just click around the map and drive through the ribbon that way. So if we want to zoom in on a particular area and look at the photo for that point, we can call that up. So again, this has been configured specifically for him. Notice they added in a logo, for his office, and configured the text here at the top of the header. So that's one example. This is another example. This is from Congressman Lou Barletta from Pennsylvania. Again, embedded directly onto his page. He wanted to highlight his Main Street tours. So as he toured around, local businesses within his district, again, there were photos being captured, so they wanted to put those together into this map tour. So same concept. You can see the layout is a little bit different with the photo over here on the left. And also notice that they've added in the district outline. to kind of contain the points that are on the map. So it shows the extent of his district as well. So that's one of the examples that I'll show a little bit later. And again, this has been customized with they chose the House of Representatives seal to put here and really customize it for their own purposes. So let me go back to our slides. All right, so just a couple quick examples there. So one of the easiest ways to create a map tour is from a Flickr album. So we have an existing website where you can go to access the map tour, and there's sort of a builder function that you can load in, and it's very easy to navigate through. And you have the option to search for a photo set or an album within your Flickr account. And it'll import those photos in, and then all you have to do is sort of configure it and tweak it to get it the way you'd like it. So it's a really easy way to bring those photos and map points in. So I'm going to go ahead and walk through how we get to that. Switch my browser here. So if you're logged into your ArcGIS Online account, for those of you in the House, that would be House Map. For the Senate, there's SAMS, that's the sort of companion site to this. Or if you're from outside the Capitol Hill area, then hopefully your organization has an ArcGIS Online account. Once you're logged in, you'll see this little grid of dots up here. This will give you access to some of the other applications associated with ArcGIS Online, one of which is the Story Maps website. So you can just click that and it'll open it in another tab, which I've already done here. And then it remembers that you're logged in with your credentials. So the Story Maps website is aware of who you are and what organization you're with. So notice here at the top, we've got some links. We'll hopefully have some time to come back and show the gallery at the end. But to dive right in, the Story Map applications are here under the Apps page. If you scroll down, you can see there's a number of different templates, as we said, with different layouts and different ways of telling stories. But the one we're focusing on today is the Story Map Tour, and it's the very first one listed. So you can go ahead and launch the configuration interface right here from the Build button. So you see it launches another tab. And the first thing it asks me is, where are your photos or videos? So we can use videos if we want to, as opposed to images. We're going to keep it simple today and just use images. So we can say that, if they're already hosted online in Flickr, we also support Picasa. I believe that's been it's a Google product now, but we can just point to Flickr and then look up our username. I'm actually going to look up the name of a colleague of ours who has demonstrated this capability many times. I spell his name right. Rupert Essinger. He works on our Story Map team. So I'll look up his account, and he's got several photo sets that are available that I can point to and bring into my map tour. So this one's called a winter hike in Mammoth. So it's photos that he took during a hiking trip, and it tells me that there's 24 photos in that set. So I'll go ahead and click import. And Rupert was savvy enough to take all these photos with a GPS-enabled camera. So usually if you're just using your smartphone, that just means turning on location services and allowing your camera to leverage those. Or if you're using another specialized camera, most of them now, these modern cameras have a GPS functionality in them so that you can kind of geotag those photos. Excuse me. So all of his points have been located. So on the located tab, it says 24. If I flip over there, here's all the photos. If there were any that didn't have location information, they would be listed here, and I could simply click the thumbnail of the image here and then click onto the map wherever I wanted to drop that point. So it's pretty easy to move them in there, even if they don't have the GPS information associated with them already. So I'll go ahead and click import for a final time here, and we can see the template is pretty much completed. The photos are all, populated into the ribbon. The larger photos over here on the side. It's also pulled in the titles and descriptions that Rupert filled out in his Flickr account. So the photos that were sitting in Flickr, he kind of edited those to have all this other descriptive information. Notice anything that has a little pencil next to it, it can be edited. So if you haven't filled out descriptions in Flickr, that's okay. You can edit them here and customize the text for each of those. So we'll talk more about the configuration later, but I just wanted to show that as sort of the easiest pathway for incorporating, for adding new photos into your map tour. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. We'll come back to it a little bit later. All right, so as we mentioned, having the geotagged photos already available is kind of a best practice. So in order to get that set up, first off, again, make sure you have location services turned on your camera. Then within Flickr itself, you need to allow that location information to be imported. So this is a privacy setting that under your account that you'll need to open up and allow it to import the EXIF location data. That's sort of the technical term for the GPS metadata. Then there's one other setting that you need to open up in order for Esri's map tour technology to be able to access those photos and the location information. So the URL for your account, it's just displayed here. You need to open up the setting to allow anyone, meaning third-party applications, to see where those photos were taken. And then you're ready to go. You can import your photos into Flickr and then add them to an album to make them easy to find once you're ready to create your map tour. So just to keep these, just wanted to keep these instructions handy so that you know some of the kind of back-end work that went into making that an easy process. All right, so what happens if you're not using Flickr? If you're not using an online photo storage service, you've just got your photos, you know, stored locally, they're on your phone and you copy them over to your local machine. How do we handle that? So that's totally fine. We can definitely import photos from your local device, from your machine, and still incorporate them into the map tour. Couple things to be aware of is to make sure you store the photos as JPEGs. That'll be the file format that the builder is looking for. Then when we go into the builder itself, we just choose a different option to upload the photos. This will create a sort of empty layer within ArcGIS Online to hold the photos. So we're doing some work on the back end to be able to store them in our cloud. And then you'll just add each photo kind of manually and import it in, and it'll automatically get stored into that layer and added into the map tour. So again, we'll take a quick look at this process. I'm going to close that. I'm going to go back and launch my builder again. So I'm going to start fresh with a new tour here. And instead of using the Flickr option, since my photos are not online, I need to upload my images. So I'll choose that option. And the first thing it wants me to do is create a new layer, a hosted layer to put my photos into. I'm just going to call this Alaska Photos. And I'll save it in my root folder. And I'll go ahead and create that layer. So it's doing a little work on in ArcGIS Online on the back end just to spin up a new hosted service. So now I've got my template, but you see it's obviously very empty. So if I want to add a photo from my local machine here, I'll click the Add button, and I'm prompted to select or drop a picture into my environment. So I've got a set of photos here that I took when I was on a work trip in Alaska. So I'm going to drop one of those onto this interface here. And you can see it's pulled in some of the information about this photo, what kind of camera it was taken with, the date, and also the location. So in this case, I did have location services turned on my cell phone when I captured this photo. So that was stored with the image in that EXIF header file. And so it has that coordinate information here, so it knows where it's supposed to go on the map. Then it's just giving me some options in terms of the image size. So, you know, depending on the type of camera you're using, it might be capturing it at a fairly high resolution. So we can either keep the original resolution or we can sort of optimize it for this web viewing. And that's the default here. Just know you can keep the original resolution, but if it's very high, sometimes that'll cause performance degradation. So the photos won't load as quickly within the map tour if you're working at a really, really high resolution. So I'm going to choose this default to change the picture resolution. And I'll go ahead and add that tour point. Notice that it flags for me that there's some errors here. So not only do I have to upload the photo, but the map tour wants me to input the associated information with the point. So again, since I'm just importing this from my local machine, there was no, title or description associated with it yet. So I need to come up with something to put in here. So I'm going to say coastal trail, hiking trail, something like that. The last tab is the location, and again, since my camera already had that information, it's placed it for me on the map. If that wasn't available, if I didn't have the location services turned on, I could come here into this map and maybe search for an address where I knew this photo was taken, or just kind of manually place it where I want it to go on the map. But we should be good now. We've got check marks across the board here, so I should be able to go ahead and add this. So now we can see I've got my first point. So I can go through and manually add each one of my photos just to show you that experience if you don't have location information. I believe I stripped out the location information from this picture, so we'll try that. Yep. So notice in this case we don't have that extra line here with the coordinate information. So in that case I would have to go here and by default it's just kind of placing it in the center of the country. So I'd have to drag that point up or put it into the address of the restaurant this rooftop restaurant where I took that sunset picture, right? So I can come in here and add that as well as fill out the associated information. I'll just cancel out of that for now. So I'll save this. I have to put a title in here, so I'll put Alaska photos. Go ahead and save that. And then I just want to show where, we mentioned that it's creating a layer in the back end to store your photos. Just to show you where that is, back in ArcGIS Online, if you go to your My Content view, I should be able to find a layer listed here of Alaska photos. So this is the web map that was just created to support this tour. This is the application itself, and then this is the hosted feature layer for storing my photos. So if you ever need to manage those items outside of the map tour, which we'll actually look at in some of the later workflows, this is where you can find them. Alrighty. So moving on, we touched a little bit on this already, but just to encapsulate some of the options when your photos don't have location information. We know certainly for those of you in the congressional offices, lots of times you're coordinating with district staff, who are capturing the photos when the senator or representative is back in their home state or district. If it's multiple people, handling the visits, it can be tough sometimes to coordinate and get everyone, using the same processes. So we understand sometimes, those photos don't have that location information. So some of the options include setting the location within Flickr if you're using that to manage your photos. They have their own sort of locating workflow if you want to associate your photos with a place on the map, and then import them into the map tour. You can, as we saw, manually add them to the map when you import from Flickr. You can manually add to the map when you upload from your machine, which is the workflow I just showed. You can also store your photos on your own web server or own file sharing URL. So as long as they're located somewhere at a URL, we can reference that in order to add them to the map tour. And again, if you don't have the location information, then you still are able to, we still give you the interface in order to manually add them to a map. And then the final option is it might be easier to actually collect all of your locations into a spreadsheet. So if you know that the member visited, all these different addresses of these businesses, and that's where you want to place your points, you might find it easier to collect all that information into a spreadsheet. You'll also need the URLs to your photos wherever they're stored. But this could be a a good alternative if you've got a lot of photos to add, for example. So a little bit more about that workflow of using a spreadsheet. We do have sort of a template spreadsheet that you can download from our builder just to give you the sort of schema that you would need to set up in your Excel file or CSV file. So as long as you keep the format that's outlined there with the columns, the column names and formats that we've set up, it's pretty straightforward to add your data into it and have the MapTour interpret it correctly. One thing you'll notice here on the screenshot is the default template comes with, it expects a latitude and longitude, so it expects coordinate information. Now we understand that's often hard to know ahead of time, so this can be amended to use columns for addresses if you'd rather just put in a street address. It modifies the workflow a little bit. We can take that CSV with the addresses in it, drag and drop it onto a map within ArcGIS Online, and then share that map into the MapTour template. So it's a little bit of a different workflow that I'll show just here in a second. All right, so I wanted to show the where you can get the example spreadsheet first. So again, I'm going to launch the builder for the MapTour, and we would consider this an advanced option. So the little gear symbols here is the section for advanced options, and so if we wanted to follow the template CSV, we could download it from here. So you would just right-click this link and save that file. This is what it looks like, and it's pretty basic. It's got a name column, description column, icon color, the latitude and longitude, and the URL for our picture. Again, everything needs to be online somewhere. And then if you want to have a separate thumbnail URL, you can do that. It's generally a best practice if you can get 2 different resolution photos, rather than taking a high resolution photo and shoving it into the space of the thumbnail image and the ribbon on the bottom. Again, that can lead to performance problems. We recommend having a lower resolution version, but that's not always possible sometimes. So you can just repeat the same URL here, but we still need to have this column represented. And then they just added a little one other column that's just a flag to let the template know if the link is actually for a video rather than a regular image. So as I said, you may not have the latitude and longitude information handy. That's not generally something that people work with regularly. So I wanted to show the workflow for collecting instead the addresses into a spreadsheet. So I've got an example of one here. This is again courtesy of Rupert from our MapTour Story Maps team. He lives in San Diego, so he's collected a list of some of his favorite restaurants around the city. And basically it's the same format, so we have the same name, description, icon color, picture URL, thumb URL, and video flag. The only difference is instead of the latitude and longitude columns, we've put in an address. And this can be, we can format it the way we've got it here, where the entire address is in a single field, a single column. But if it's easier for you to format it separately, so you've got one column for the street, one column for the city, one column for the state, one column for the zip, that works fine as well. Doesn't really matter to us. So if this is a CSV that I have I want to create a MapTour from, instead of using the builder here from the Story Maps page, I'm going to go back into ArcGIS Online. So if you've worked in ArcGIS Online before, you'll know that there's a map viewer that's built right in where we can compile maps and add different layers of information to make different information products. So this is where I can actually take a CSV and drag and drop it onto the map. So I'm going to take that San Diego CSV and I'm just going to drag it onto my map. It's going to just have me verify what column represents my location information. Let's guess that that's my address field. So I'm going to go ahead and add that layer. So it's going to draw those points for me here around San Diego. Looks like got them all mapped. Rather than styling them based on some category like it's trying to do here, I'm just going to show the location only. It doesn't really matter what styling you apply at this level because it's going to be translated into the those standard icons that we use within the map tour. So this is just about getting our data onto the map. So now that I've got this onto my map, I need to save this web map within ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to call this San Diego map tour and demo. Go ahead and save. Now that the map is saved, this is the other pathway that we can use to create a story map or really any type of configurable web application. If we choose to share our map, we can use the create a web app option, and this lists all of the different configurable templates that Esri has available within ArcGIS Online. So you can see there's a lot of other ones that beyond just the story maps. There's ones that have very specific functionality in here. As you scroll down, you see the ones that are prefaced with story map, and the map tour should be listed here. So I can select it from this little gallery, and then go ahead and create a web map. And I'll just title this a little bit cleaner here, and go ahead and save that into my folder. So now it becomes another item within my content, and I'm automatically taken into the builder for this application. The software assumes I want to go in and configure it, and now I've got my my map tour again pretty much put together the way that we saw when we imported from Flickr. So again, this is another, if you can organize the content into the CSV ahead of time, this is another easy way to bring it into the map tour interface. So again, from here I could start configuring further if I wanted to. Just to point out one other interesting bit, you notice here on some of these descriptions, we've kind of done some extra formatting of the description text. There's a red colored hyperlink here, so if I wanted to go to the website for this restaurant, also some formatting of the address down below. Formatting of the address down below and the photo credit, kind of here in gray italicized text. So if I look back at the spreadsheet that we used, this was actually some HTML markup that was added directly into the Excel field. So if you're familiar with HTML at all, or if you have some folks on your staff that can help with this, you can add in this little bit of markup here for the hyperlink, red color, and then the formatting of the address information and photo courtesy or photo credit down here. So just know that that's another option if you want to add in, make it polished just a little bit more, the descriptive text. Any of that HTML markup that you put into Excel gets carried through and interpreted by the map tour, and you can edit it. You can edit it within here as well. So if I go into here, the markup is exposed. I can come in and edit the tags and change color and that type of stuff. All right, so I'm going to save this as well. Again, we'll use it later. And keep going here. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about configuration. We've built a couple story maps now, a couple map tours, but I've just kind of stopped when we've gotten to the point of getting the photos loaded in there. So there's other things that you can do to kind of brand the map tour and make it your own. You can change the photo order and visibility. So if the order in which you added them or imported them is not the final order in which you want to present the photos, that's fine. We can reorder them. We can change the base map, so the underlying sort of contextual map, that can be altered as well. The titles and captions, obviously, we saw how to go in and edit those. The layout, we saw it up front. There were a couple different examples of that. I'll show how to switch those. The header colors, so the bar across the top that has the title, what kind of color you want there, as well as on the far right, there's the logo that we put in there by default is the Esri logo. And the links, if you want to hyperlink out to your website or something like that, that can be customized as well. So we'll go ahead and take a quick look at those configuration options. So here within, I'll just stick with this, this example of the San Diego restaurateur. Notice over here on the map, it's, you know, whichever photo I've selected, that that icon is kind of being called out, and it's prompting me that I can move the point around, or I can change the color of the point. So we've got 4 different colors to choose from. By default, we just put everything in red. But if you have some way to categorize your points, you know, your locations, you know, you can choose to make them different colors to kind of match those categories. We've seen this used maybe for like a local government that's trying to promote their capital improvement projects, for example. They might color code them based on their status, you know, if they're proposed or in progress or completed or something like that. You know, we can come up with categories for photos and apply the colors. And similarly, we can move the points around. So if for some reason, you know, we use the address for these restaurants, so it should be pretty accurate, but if we needed to move it around, we should be able to drag the point around and place it somewhere else on the map if we want to do that. All right, we mentioned being able to reorder the photos themselves. So if I, you know, want to swap some of these around, I can use the organize option. And here it just gives me sort of a grid of all the photos that we've loaded up. Maybe I want to switch the order. I can just kind of drag them into position however I want to order them. We can also hide photos. So if you decide there's one that you don't want to display in your tour anymore, we can just hide it. Sort of like hiding slides in your PowerPoint. We can also use the option for making the first photo an introduction. So rather than it being placed on the map, it won't have a point associated with it on the map. It just appears almost as like a splash screen, sort of an intro to your story, right? So if for some reason I wanted to do that, I could make that first photo. It kind of pulls it out of the little gallery here. And then when I apply it, I now have this intro I can go to. So this no longer is represented on the map. Just start with the next photo as the first one that shows up on the map. And of course, you know, you can come back and edit that at any time. If you want to unhide your photos or delete them entirely, you can do that. All right, so those are some of the mapping options. The base map, by default, we put in a sort of Esri's default base map is our topographic map. So you see it's got a lot of features, natural features, which may not be meaningful to your story. So, you know, that's just, we have to choose some default, and so that's the one we choose. But just know that there are other maps available to you as base maps. So if it makes more sense to use imagery, for example, for something like this, that might be good if we're zoomed into a small enough area. The imagery, you know, can provide a lot more context, particularly for people that are, you know, looking to find these locations or find these restaurants or businesses. We also have the National Geographic map is kind of a nice, visually pleasing, cartographically pleasing one. I think it works well in these when you're zoomed out a little further. Maybe not the best at when you're zoomed in, but feel free to choose the base map that makes the most sense for you. And you can just expand this little gallery here and choose the one that you want. And then up here in the settings, which we haven't explored yet, this is where we can configure more things like the layout, the colors, and the header. So we mentioned the layout has a couple options. By default, it puts the photo over on the left with just sort of a default kind of gray background around it. It doesn't overlap the map at all. But we can choose this more integrated layout, which will move the photo over on the right, and it sort of floats on top of the map. So you can see the map still kind of underneath it. So whichever one you prefer. And then for the colors, this is where we've got some default sets of colors for the basically for the gray bar across the top, the content, the ribbon, you know, the footer background and your ribbon, and then the background behind the photos. This kind of defines what those are going to look like. And we've chosen some very neutral, generally neutral kind of colors, muted colors. But you may have some specific website branding that you want to adhere to. So if you want to make this match the rest of your organization's website, you can choose this last option, and we'll give you a full color picker here, or you can even put in the hexacode value for the colors that you want, so you can really make it match your own organization's branding. Stick with the standard one. For the header itself, again, Esri we like the free promotion, but at the same time, we do want to encourage you to brand it and make it your own with your own logo, whether that's House or Senate seal or state seal, or if you're out from an outside organization, your organization seal. It really helps lend authenticity to the application. So rather than leaving the Esri logo in there, where it could possibly be mistaken for a demo that someone like me put together, if you add your own logo in, it really helps sort of give it that authoritative stamp. So you would just choose the custom logo option, and again put in the URL. So if you look up the URL for the House seal or Senate seal or state seal, just put that in there. You can also hyperlink it. So if you want that logo to be hyperlinked to another page, you can. Alternatively, you can just use the little text that we've got up top. So there's sort of text next to the logo that by default just says a story map, and it links back to Esri's story map page. But this again could be modified to put in the congressman's name or senator's name, and then link back to your own website if you'd like. You can also disable the sharing options if for some reason you don't want it promoted through social media, but I imagine most of at least for the congressional staffers, that's generally something that is a positive thing to want to have it shared more through social media, but just know that those configuration options are there. There's a couple other ones in here. You don't really have to worry about the data too much if you followed some of the best practices for including the workflows for loading the photos in. This should be taken care of. You can change the default extent of the map. So when it first loads, how zoomed in are you? What extent of the map are you looking at? And then if you want to specify a zoom level for your points, if people click on one, how far in do you want it to zoom in on that point? You can specify that there. But I think the main fun of the configuration is really in the colors and the header. So apply any of your changes. And yeah, I think that's about it. So I'll just save all those changes. Make sure you save early and often with these as well, just like anything else. Okay. All right, so we saw the example from Congressman Barletta's office where he actually added in the district boundary around his points. So I wanted to kind of encapsulate the workflow for that. These are boundaries that we have available within ArcGIS Online. So they're the authoritative boundaries from the census, along with the current member information. So we've got the 115th Congress. So basically you go to find the web map for your map tour. Again, if you're loading it through Flickr, that's kind of created for you behind the scenes. Or if you're using a spreadsheet, you create that yourself. But you open that, and then basically we're going to add the other layer, add the congressional district layer on top. We can filter it to only show the boundary for your district. Same thing goes for states. If you're working in a senator's office and you want to just highlight the state, you can do the same thing. There's a states layer available. And then you can do some configuration on that layer to change the fill if you want it to be, for example, this one they kind of shaded in red, or if you just want it to be an outline, how thick is that outline, what color is the outline, things like that. And then you just save that into your map and it'll get passed through into your tour. So we'll go ahead and show that workflow. I'm going to go back to my content. And I'll find the web map for that San Diego San Diego map that we just put together. So San Diego map tour. So this is the web map that I created when I dragged and dropped that CSV onto it. Notice that it's remembered my updates when within the map tour I changed the base map from that topographic map. This is the National Geographic base map. So it's remembered that for me. It made that save that change. But if I want to add in the district boundary, I know this data isn't necessarily specific to any one particular district, but we'll just come as close as we can. So within the map viewer here, we can go ahead and use the add option to search for layers. So I'm going to search. If you're working in the house organization, the house map system, you can just search within your organization. That's where this layer is shared from. If you're working outside of the house, you still want access to the congressional districts, just open up the search scope to look within all of ArcGIS Online. But I'm just going to type in the 115th Congress, and there's these congressional districts layer. I'll add that in. By default, the layer is just a simple black boundary, and it's obviously showing all of the districts. I'm just going to choose the one where it looks like kind of most of the points are captured here, and that would be Representative Scott Peters. So if I click on the map to see the information about this district, we can either just go by the representative's last name or full name. Last names often repeat, so I find it easiest to we're gonna filter it based on this district ID. So every district has a unique 4-digit code. Obviously you'd probably be familiar with the district code itself, but we just need to know the state code to put in front of that. So California's state code is 06. So his 4-digit code is 0652. So I'm just gonna remember that. And then for this layer over here in my contents, I'll go to the option to filter it. So I use that little yellow button with the filter in front of it. And I'm going to choose to display features that match the expression where the district ID is, and then unique. If I choose the unique option, it'll give me a list of all of the possible district IDs, or I could just type it in, or if I can scroll down and find it, I should find 0652. So apply that filter, and hopefully it's still there. Did I choose the right one? Yeah, there it is. So there's the boundary just for Representative Peters district. Now, it's kind of hard to see here. It's not super obvious where that boundary is, so maybe I just want to make it a little bit more prominent. I can use this option, the third button here from the left, to change the style. So I'll go in here and just use the option to go to the symbols. So we use change symbols, and we'll leave the fill as is. We'll leave it hollow, so it's 100% transparent. So you can see that slider's all the way over here. Leave that as is. I just want to adjust the outline. So I'll go to the outline option at the top, and I can make it a different color if I want, or I can simply change the boundary thickness. In this case, we'll make the line width something a little bit thicker, just so we can see it more clearly. And just say OK, done. And then just save this as is. So I don't really want to make any other changes to my map. I'm happy with the boundary where it is. I'll save that. And now if I go, I'll close this one. If I go back to my content and I find that map tour, San Diego map tour, if I view that application, now I see that district boundary. So you don't need to edit it within the map tour itself. We just make the change back at the source web map to add in that layer. So you can think, if there's other types of contextual information you want to have in your map, you can add those in. There's no real, they're obviously not affecting the photo order or anything. There's no real interaction with them. So notice if I try and click on this district, I'm not getting any sort of pop-up. So we try to keep it focused on just letting people interact with the photos. But if you visually want to have any other sort of contextual layers in there, that's the process for adding them. Okay. All right, so last topic is sharing and embedding. So, you've put all this great work into configuring this map tour. We want to promote it and get it out in front of people. So obviously, once you've finished configuring it, you save it. Hopefully you've been doing that along the way. Then if it's something you're, obviously intending to put out publicly, you need to share it publicly. There's an option to do that from within the map tour builder interface. There's a sharing capability there, and that'll generate a URL for you if you want to just give that URL to your web team to hyperlink to from your page so it launches. The other recommended way I would say to manage your map tour and any other story maps that you create is on something we call the maps or the My Stories page. So back on the main website where we launched the builders from, there's another component called the My Stories page, which will list anything that you've created and allow you to easily manage them and share them and start to find ways to embed them and link to them. So some of the options are, using social media sharing. Best practice is to configure the thumbnail and summary before you do that. You can also generate an embed code and we can also preview what that embed is going to look like. So now I just like to demo that real quick. So back here on the back on the Story Maps website. So before we went to the apps page up here at the top, now I'm going to go to the My Stories page, which is over here on the right. So this should list any of the story maps associated with my account. So these are the 3 that I just put together today. So this is the Winter Hike in Mammoth. This was the one we imported from Flickr to create. The Alaska photos where I uploaded from my local machine here. And then the San Diego one where we dragged and dropped the CSV. So notice it kind of puts some default thumbnails in here. We can certainly edit those, which is definitely a best practice. But if I click and expand on this title here, it'll go through and list kind of all the resources that have gone into this map tour. So particularly for the map tour, it's very focused on images. So it's checking to make sure that all of those images are accessible. So the URLs, wherever those images are stored, can it hit those? Are they publicly available? Or is there a problem where they're inaccessible? Same thing with the web maps themselves. So if the web map is, it's a resource being used by the map tour, it needs to be shared at the same level as the application itself. So right now, over here in this side panel, this map tour is not shared at all. It's still just private. I can go ahead and make it public. And notice it automatically shared my source web map to match. So that web map is also now public so that anyone that accesses the map tour, they're not going to be prompted to log in. There's nothing locked down. Sometimes when we build these story maps, particularly with some of the other templates where we're incorporating a lot of diverse content coming from a lot of different places, sometimes we lose track of where resources are coming from and at what level they're shared. So this little checker over here is a really handy way to make sure that everything is shared at the same level and your users won't have any problems accessing the content. All right, so the other options here, obviously if I want to go in and edit the map tour, I can just preview it, open it up in a new tab outside of the editing experience. So this is what it looks like for everyone else. These are social media sharing options. So we've got Facebook and Twitter, and then the embedding option is available here through this little link icon. So when I click that, first it just generates like an auto-shortened URL. So if all I want to do is just send someone the URL to that, I can just grab that. Or if you want to embed your map tour onto an existing website like we saw with Senator Wyden and Congressman Barletta, this brings up the embedding sort of HTML code that you would need. So we can choose a different size for it. So if we want it to be in a smaller kind of frame, smaller area, we can choose small, medium, large, or we can put in a custom one. So if you work with your web team to decide, how big of an area is this going to take up on the page, what's the width of our page, they can help you kind of get to the best format. And then once you've chosen that, it updates this this embed code. You can just simply copy out of here and send it, paste it into an email to send to your web team to update. One thing we do recommend is previewing the embed. So for example, if I choose the small version, I can preview what that looks like just sort of on a wireframes page here. Notice when I embedded it this small space, it's collapsing into the mobile view. So as I mentioned, these apps are all sort of responsively designed. So rather than showing it as we have been seeing it in the full layout, it sort of collapsed it into how someone on a mobile device might see it, which is probably not the best experience for putting it onto an entire web page and having this embedded within it. So we would generally recommend not using it this small, but if you do, absolutely include a link below it. So edit your actual web page that's hosting it. Edit that to just have a little hyperlink underneath it for people to be able to view it in full screen mode. That'll be a much better experience for certainly for your mobile users. Whereas if we look at the large version, we can see it, it's obviously taking up much greater space on the screen and is in that regular full screen view that we're used to. So definitely use that option, and then also make sure we come in here and edit the, particularly if you're going to be sharing it through social media, make sure you edit the summary text here, make it something descriptive yet concise, and then update the thumbnail. So because this is information that will get passed through to those social media outlets. If you see it on your Twitter feed or Facebook feed, news feed, it's, rather than seeing this ugly default icon that we put in here, you can choose a new image. For the map tour, since there's already a lot of photos in there, it's kind of prompting me to choose one of those if I want to use that, or I can upload my own thumbnail image if I like. But definitely come in and make that configuration update, and then add in a summary as well. And so that's, kind of the best practices, I would say, is coming here and managing this content through my stories. I don't know why that photo's not coming in. But again, I can go through and check each one of my map tours or other story maps and perform the same sort of updates and checking for it. So let's go back here for just a wrap up. All right, so yeah, so that was basically it. We're coming up against about 6 minutes shy of the end of our time here. Just real quick, I'll show the other templates. If you want to explore more about the story maps, again, you can go to the apps page and read more about each of these other types of layouts. Also explore the gallery. So the gallery link here at the top has thousands of examples of our user community, as well as Esri professionals that have created these story maps. And you can, if you want to see more examples of the map tour, you can filter it to look at those examples, or look at some of the other templates or particular subject area that you're interested in. So if you have some time, we encourage you to look through here and get some inspiration. So other than that, that's all the content that I wanted to cover today. So Lauren, were there any questions that came in?
Ronnie, so someone would like to know if the tour can be edited after it's been shared on a public website.
Yes, absolutely. So even once you've embedded it onto a page, the builder is still accessible, so you can certainly go in at any time and make changes and update it. So they'll automatically be pushed out to wherever you've embedded it. So the next time that someone opens your website, they'll see the latest version that you've edited.
And then one other question, someone would like to know if there's a limit to the number of photos that can be added to a map tour.
Okay, great question. So yes, out of the box, we do limit it to 99 photos. That's actually driven by the little icons that we use on the map. We only really created them to store 2 digits. We only have, little image files that go up for 2 digits, so that's why we cap it at 99. Quite honestly, 99 photos is a lot for people to scroll through, so even that I think is, from a usability and best practices standpoint, it's probably too much anyways. If you do have many, many more photos that you want to include, there's other templates that you might want to look at, particularly one called the short list. Particularly if you can categorize your photos in any way, the short list is great for letting you sort of chunk up your data, chunk up your images and say, here's images about restaurants, here's images for entertainment or outdoor recreation or whatever it is. So we see that used a lot, and that there's obviously you can incorporate more than 99 photos there. We're not using any sort of numbered icons, so you should be able to add in many more there. That'd be my recommendation. Anything else?
A reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat window. Looks like that's it.
Yeah, I don't see any coming in, but thank you all very much for joining us today.